drop the rock in the pond and those ripples start going out, they understand that that's going to be the case if they give back to these people that are coming up behind them. But if you're not somebody who's willing to be mentored, if you're not somebody who's teachable, if you're not somebody who's going to take action on the advice that you give or that you get, then you're probably going to find yourself wanting for mentors and advisors in those tough times, because you never did anything with any of the stuff that any of them told you to do and to begin with. So they just want to see that there's going to be some sort of give and take in the relationship. And if you're constantly just taking, it's a really good way to end up with a network full of takers, which is not one that I want.
Yeah, and everybody needs a mentor, or at least a few. And speak to that a little bit, because mentors are so important.
Absolutely. Well, like kind of like what I said earlier, there's one of the mindset differences between successful people and non-successful people is successful people tend to value time over money, and non-successful people tend to value money over time. And mentors, coaches, anybody who's been there, done that, bought the t-shirt in front of you in whatever field that you're in, that's nothing but a way to compress time. It's also helpful for mental health. It's helpful to know that, you're not a crazy, so sometimes it can be difficult if you're kind of the person in your circle that's doing all these crazy things all the time, and all your other friends are, working W-2 jobs and kind of doing the more traditional, quote unquote, traditional path. Having a mentor who's just as crazy or crazier than you are makes you feel somewhat normal. So that's a good thing. You have a sounding board. It's good for your mental health. You have somebody to connect with, somebody who can get to know you and your problems, somebody you can be honest with about the struggles that you have. If you're running a business, you got a bunch of employees, you might be close to some of your employees, but you can't necessarily go to them with a big problem that's happening inside of the business when you're trying to instill confidence in them that the company is going somewhere and doing big things. That does not mean that you're not going to have any struggles or things that you're working on. So having somebody to share those things with that's, again, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, will help normalize the situations. But the main thing is that we'll always compress time. So even if you have to pay for your first mentor in the form of a coach or something like that, it's always worth the investment to invest that money back into yourself, because they could help you fix something that would take you 18 months to figure out on your own, and they could do it in a week. They could do it in a single 30-minute coaching session, because they've just seen it time and time and time again. And I remember this stuck out to me as like an illustration for this, when my son was, I want to say he was maybe 18 months, 2 years old. I don't know. So somewhere around there. And not to brag or anything, but I'm way smarter than my 2-year-old son. And I remember watching him. He was putting together this, it was like a puzzle or something like that. And he had to like put this shape into this, maybe it was one of those balls you put the shape in like the different holes, if it's like a square hole or a round hole or a triangle hole, whatever, kind of teaches them shapes, whatever. And I remember watching him do it. Like I said, he was an infant at the time, and he was like, he kept the piece was upside down, and he kept trying to, like, he knew it was the right piece, but he kept trying to like force the piece into the hole and couldn't quite figure it out. And I just remember watching him struggle with it. And as a parent, I try to let them struggle as much as I can. When I want them to figure something out, I try not to step in and do it. I don't want to be the parent who cripples the butterfly wings. You know what I mean? So I was just watching him do it for probably a solid like 2 minutes. It was quite some time just watching him struggle. And then eventually I just kind of reached back down and just flipped the thing upside down for him. And then he pushed it in, no problem. I remember looking at that and thinking, like, that is exactly what a mentor does. Is like, I could be driving myself crazy for months on end, trying to force this thing into this hole, trying to like figure out this problem and just be bashing my head against the wall. And a mentor who's been in that room and in that exact situation 30 times in the last 25 years can look at me, look at the situation and be like, have you tried this one thing? And then just solve it in a half a second and free up all that space, that mental energy, that time, the money I'm wasting by just stepping in and using their expertise to solve the problem. So mentors, coaches, people who are smarter than you, it's non-negotiable to have those types of people in your corner, because of the amount of time that it can compress for you and the amount of time that it can save off of your learning curve. And that's our most important, that's our most valuable asset. Time. You can get money back. I've talked to so many people who've lost millions and millions, tens of millions even of dollars, and made it back in 3 years, 5 years, whatever the time frame is. But zero people that I've ever talked to have ever figured out how to get themselves more time. So
Mm.
time's the most valuable asset that we have. How can you exchange your money to get more time? Mentorship, books, uh, conferences, events, coaches. That's the answer.
So I'd like to, before we close, I'd like to kind of turn it inward a little bit, uh, and ask your perspective on your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your body, the way that you take care of your energetic hygiene, the way that you feed your mind. How important is that to your success? And do you have any methods that you recommend people do, like, you know, definitely work out every day or walk or anything like that?
I would say it's probably the number one factor that contributes to your success is your relationship with yourself, because it's not, like I said earlier, success is a subjective term. But I think that if you asked a broad swath of people, almost all of them would put happiness, meaning, purpose, some sort of, elusive goal as a part of their happiness equation. Right. It's not just money. It's usually like, I want to be happy. I want to be fulfilled in my work. I want to have purpose in life. I want those things. I also want money. I also want freedom. I also, so typically it's a combination of money and freedom, but happiness and fulfillment and those things are always tied into it. And by far, the longest study on human happiness ever conducted by Harvard found that relationships are the number one factor that contributes to somebody's happiness in their lifetime. And your relationships, the foundation for your relationship with everybody else in your life is your relationship with yourself. If you don't have a good relationship with yourself, then it's really difficult to have good relationships with other people. And you're always going to struggle in those relationships, and therefore always struggle with your happiness and your fulfillment. So almost everything, I think, comes back down to your relationship with yourself, even as it relates to success. And we are not separate beings. We can't separate pieces of ourselves. We can't separate the mental from the physical, from the spiritual, from the mindset. Like we're holistic. So if you're not taking care of your mental well-being, your spiritual well-being, your physical well-being, it will 100% bleed into everything else. So I think it's paramount to have a great relationship with yourself. Um, how do you do that? I think it's going to look a little bit different for everybody. But for me, like those daily habits is the gym.
Yeah.
It's going for walks. It's drinking more water. It's prioritizing sleep, sunlight. Like to me, like people spend so much time worrying about supplements and NAD and this thing and that thing and this new health hack and biohack and wearing these types of glasses versus that supplement and putting this skin patch on. But then they don't prioritize their sleep. They never see the sun during the day. They don't get any exercise or physical activity. And if they do, they're doing the wrong things. Like if most people would just drink more water, prioritize sleep, prioritize protein in their diet, and go for a walk every day, that by itself would drastically increase productivity at work, happiness, mental health. It'll defog your brain. So you have to take care of your physical self. You have to take care of your mental self, your spiritual self, and all of those things will bleed into your success. So if you are in a position where you can't spend any time by yourself without driving yourself insane, where like you have to look at your device, you have to be on social media, you have to be watching Netflix, you have to have a podcast, and you got to be listening to music, you can't ever be with yourself by yourself with just your thoughts, then that's probably a red flag. That probably
Yes.
tells you that you are not comfortable with something about you, whether that's things that you're doing in secret that don't align with the version of yourself that you portray to the world. It could be that you are not keeping the promises that you've made to yourself. It could be that you just have bad self-worth from negative experiences as a child, trauma that happened when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Regardless of the reason, it needs to be, you need to dive into it. You have to do the uncomfortable work of figuring out why you can't be with yourself, because there's something that you don't trust about you. And I promise you, if you don't trust something about yourself and you can't quite put your finger on it, other people are going to feel the same exact vibe from you. They're going to not trust you and not be able to put their finger on it. But it's probably not because you're untrustworthy. It's probably because you view yourself as being untrustworthy, and therefore that bleeds into the conversations and relationships you have with everybody else. So ask yourself that question: can I spend time by myself? If you don't know the answer, then just do it. Go for a walk for an hour and don't bring anything with you. Don't bring your dog, don't bring your phone. Just go for a walk, go for a drive. Don't turn on the music, don't listen to podcasts, and see how long you can spend just being with you, thinking about your life, thinking about the future, visioning what you have going on, what your daily activities look like. And if that's a really hard thing for you, then there might be some really difficult work that you're going to have to do soon, which has to do with getting back to trusting yourself, respecting yourself, setting some small goals and doing those goals no matter what. Yeah, I don't make a lot of promises to myself anymore, because I know that when I don't keep those promises, that it makes myself trust and respect myself less. So I only make promises to myself that I know I can keep, because that's going to portray how much confidence I have in my ability to deliver. And that confidence will bleed into my relationships with other people.
Perfect. That's wonderful.
Wow.
That's everything. Thank you so much. Augie, do you want to ask your world famous question before we
Oh,
close?
yes. But before that, one more time, would you let people know where they can go and listen to your shows? And if there are any services that you do for people, please let them know.
Sure. Yeah. TravisChappell.com. You can find all my stuff there. And then if you're listening on a podcast platform or YouTube or anything like that, you can just search Travis Makes Money or Travis Makes Friends, and you'll find both of those podcasts there.
Okay. All right. I have one last question for you. If you can talk to the whole world and the world is listening, what would you tell them? That was my
Probably some.
answer too. That's the
Yeah.
first time
Yeah.
I heard it. That was my last answer.
Yeah. Probably something about empathy or respect. I think. I think if we all had more empathy for each other and respected each other as human beings, that the world would be a much kinder and safer place for everybody. So
Yeah,
more empathy, more respect.
Beautiful. That's
absolutely.
that's a great note to end on. Travis Chappell, thank you so much for being with us. I just feel like my life has been made better for spending this hour with you and Augie. So thank you so much. And thanks, Augie.
Thank
Thanks everybody in the chat room. I saw you. Sorry I couldn't get in and type, but we appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Much love, everybody.
thank you. Thank you.
Augie, Nori, thank you guys so much